Story starts in the midst of a vast and magical forest. There lives a furbog woman named Tiffy. With her grey skin and blossom pink hair, she was only 10 foot 1, rather small, truth be told. Tiffy had been raised with her 5 siblings to care for and nurture all living things. Now, this family lived to serve the forest. They belted trees together after lightning storms to help them heal. They buried the dead creatures so that their bodies would become part of the earth. They did live off the land, but only took what was needed and nothing more, always providing fresh fruit and vegetables for the fellow forest dwellers from their own patch when they had surplus, and feeding lost travellers before guiding them along the sometimes treacherous paths. Phoebe was the last born of her family, so when the last one they called upon for adventure when the time came. One by one, all the 5 had left their family home to seek glories or riches, their humble lives in the forest not enough for them. One day, many years after the last of her elder siblings had left, their mother, Theodora, had a terrible vision that there was a great evil named Monaxia coming to tip the balance of power to darkness. So Phoebe wholeheartedly volunteered to find the one known only as the Heart of the Forest to see what could be done. Phoebe started her journey, asking every other tree and animal she found along the way if they could guide her to the heart. She asked an old oak, and in reply its branches moved to guide her path. She asked a passing crow, sitting on a nearby branch, and it took off to let her follow for a while, before it got distracted. To repay the kindness of the creatures of the wood in aiding her, she planted seeds of cherry trees along her path, so that some part of her would live on to feed them if she fell to this monaxia. It felt like she was wandering for days, if not weeks. She stopped for many naps along the way. During one she was shaken softly awake by the most gorgeous creature Phoebe had ever seen in her whole life. Olive skin, luminous green hair, and her clothing looked like it was grown from her, leaves, moss, and bark covering all it needed to keep her decent. There was also an ethereal quality to the lovely, concerned-looking face. Phoebe had to catch her breath before asking, "Do you know where the heart of the forest is?" The Dryad's features softened and she nodded, gesturing round her. "You are here, young one. My friends the trees and the animals have spoken of your odyssey to find me. What is it that troubles you so?" "Great lady, my name is Phoebe. Our family has lived within your domain for generations," she explained. "I am the youngest of my family, the last to try to prove myself worthy of that great honour. I was told of a vision by my mother, where a great shadow of evil would shroud your lands and hurt many who reside within, an injustice I could not stand back and allow. I was told the name of the evil was Monaxia. Do you know of it? I came here to pledge myself to you and to protect you and yours from its clutches." She stood up at this and reached out her hand to help Phoebe to her feet, and replied, "Well met, Phoebe. I am Crinea. I thought I recognized you with your cherry blossom hair. You look so like your mother. Many moons ago I met a young Theodora who promised to be my greatest friend. She stayed with me for the better part of a century before she was her time to go for a new adventure. She promised me that someday she would find a suitable partner for me to share my forest with, one pure of heart who shares my love for my domain. For you see, just by being here, you have averted your mother's vision, as the evil you've named, old Monaxia, is just a name for loneliness." So together they stayed, happily protecting the land and its inhabitants together for the rest of Phoebe's life. So if you ever come across a lush forest sprinkled with cherry trees and mixed moss of cherry pink and vibrant green combined, you may be standing in that forest.
On the edge of a gigantic forest, there lived a family of furry creatures known as furries. Um, Family of 5, mother and father, 3 sisters. Now the sister who stood out the most, her name was Tiffany. She had a pink streak in her hair, and she looked just so similar to her mother, who also had a pink streak in her hair. One day the family decided they were going to go and find the heart of the forest. Now, Tiffany decided she didn't want to go. She was afraid of how long it would take them to get there, what they would come across. Her mother said, "I'll stay back with you." And the rest of the family went. Eventually, A day or so passed, and her mother said to her, "You need to go and look for the heart of the forest. It's your destiny. It's something you've got to do. Walk straight and follow your heart." So Tiffany packed her bags and headed off out. And she headed straight, like her mother had said. And she came across, after days of travelling, she came across a crow. And she thought, "I'll ask him if he knows where the heart of the forest is." The crow pointed his long, blackened wing off to the left and said, "It's that way. Just keep going that way. You'll be fine." Tiffany didn't trust the crow, just did not trust him. And he said, "I fly all over these places. It's that way. Trust me." And Tiffany decided, "No, I'm going to follow my heart. I'm going to keep going straight." So she carried on going straight. More days passed and she started to feel nervous and worried. It was getting dark, and with the forest being so overgrown, it was difficult to see. But eventually she came across this creature, very small creature, but it stood out because, like her, it had some pink fur. And so she stopped and she spoke to it and she said, "Excuse me, do you know where the heart of the forest is?" And the creature said, "Of course I do. I am the heart of the forest." So Tiffany thought for a while and she was like, "I've been lied to before. How do I know?" And the creature said, "Well, your mother met me once before and she had a pink streak in her hair." Now that was all Tiffany needed to hear. If this creature knew her mother, it must be true. So they played together and laughed together and sang together, and basically if you see pink foliage out in the woods, it's a reminder that once upon a time Tiffany and her friend, the small pink furred creature, had a really good time.
It starts in the midst of a vast and magical forest. There lives a furball woman named Tiffy. With her grey skin and blossom pink hair, she was only 10 foot 1, rather small, truth be told. Tiffy had been raised with her 5 siblings to care for and nurture all living things. Now this family lived to serve the forest. They belted trees together after lightning storms to help them heal. They buried the dead creatures so that their bodies would become part of the earth. They did live off the land, but only took what was needed and nothing more, always providing fresh fruit and vegetables for the fellow forest dwellers from their own patch when they had surplus, and feeding lost travellers before guiding them along the sometimes treacherous paths. Phoebe was the last born of her family, so when the last one they called upon for adventure when the time came. One by one, all the 5 had left their family home to seek glories or riches, their humble lives in the forest not enough for them. One day, many years after the last of her elder siblings had left, their mother, Theodora, had a terrible vision that there was a great evil named Manaxia coming to tip the balance of power to darkness. So Phoebe wholeheartedly volunteered to find the one known only as the Heart of the Forest to see what could be done. Phoebe started her journey, asking every other tree and animal she found along the way if they could guide her to the heart. She asked an old oak, and in reply its branches moved to guide her path. She asked a pasking crow, sitting on a nearby branch, and it took off to let her follow for a while, before it got distracted. To repay the kindness of the creatures of the wood in aiding her, she planted seeds of cherry trees along her path, so that some part of her would live on to feed them if she fell to this Manaxia. It felt like she was wandering for days, if not weeks. She stopped for many naps along the way. During one she was shaken softly awake by the most gorgeous creature Phoebe had ever seen in her whole life. Olive skin, luminous green hair, and a clothing looked like it was grown from her. leaves, moss, and bark covering all it needed to keep her decent. There's, there's also an ethereal quality to the lovely, concerned-looking face. Phoebe had to catch her breath before asking, "Do you know where the heart of the forest is?" The Dryad's features softened and she nodded, gesturing round her. "You are here, young one. My friends the trees and the animals have spoken of your odyssey to find me. What is it that troubles you so?" "Great lady, my name is Phoebe. Our family has lived within your domain for generations," she explained. "I am the youngest of my family, the last to try prove myself worthy of that great honour. I was told of a vision by my mother, where a great shadow of evil would shroud your lands and hurt many who reside within, an injustice I could not stand back and allow. I was told the name of the evil was Monaxia. Do you know of it? I came here to pledge myself to you and to protect you and yours from its clutches." She stood up at this and reached out her hand to help Phoebe to her feet, and replied, "Well met, Phoebe. I am Crinea. I thought I recognized you with your cherry blossom hair. You look so like your mother. Many moons ago I met a young Theodora who promised to be my greatest friend. She stayed with me for the better part of a century before she was her time to go for a new adventure. She promised me that someday she would find a suitable partner for me to share my forest with, one pure of heart who shares my love for my domain. For you see, just by being here, you have averted your mother's vision, as the evil you've named, old Monaxia, is just a name for loneliness." So together they stayed, happily protecting the land and its inhabitants together for the rest of Phoebe's life. So if you ever come across a lush forest sprinkled with cherry trees and mixed moss of cherry pink and vibrant green combined, you may be standing in that forest.
Okay, here we go. Beautiful story. Our story begins with a furbog family, and the main character is a furbog by the name of Phoebe. Now, Phoebe is the fifth and youngest child in the family, and she stands at 10'1", and for 10'1", that's rather short for a furbog. And she lives in a grove with her family and her mother, and they take care of the forest and look after the plants and everything. And whenever travellers get lost on the road, her family and her, they help take them back, and they nurture the plants and look after the trees and the wildlife, and live a good, solid, virtuous life in the forest. But Phoebe's family have all flown the nest now because they've had to go off on their own various adventures and go off and seek fame and glory and fortunes in different parts of the world, and go off and do fantastical things. And Phoebe is the last person left in her grove. And she's quite content with life. However, one day her mother, Theodora, comes to her and says that a great evil is going to be a threat to the land by the name of Monaxia, and they need someone to go and solve this problem. And Theodora, Phoebe it says without hesitation, she says, "I'll go. I'll do this. This was meant to be. I've been waiting for an adventure, for a challenge. I've been waiting for my time." So off Phoebe goes, and following the path, following her heart. And as she goes along, taking in all the splendour she sees in the nature, she would stop and ask a great oak tree the direction to go, and the wind would gently rustle in the branches of the leaves of the great oak, pointing her in the right direction. And on occasion she would meet small creatures like a crow, and she would say, "Dear crow, which way should I go?" And the crow would allow her to follow its path until it got somehow distracted by having fun elsewhere. And then one night, Phoebe went to sleep, and the next morning she woke up, and she was greeted by one of the most beautiful sights she'd ever seen, and she lives in such splendour. It was a creature with olive skin, beautiful pale olive skin, so colourful olive skin, and a dress that was almost, her body was almost like her leaves were part of her body. Such a beautiful creature with big yellow eyes. And Phoebe said, "Oh, who are you? I wonder if you can help me. I'm seeking the heart of the forest," for that was where the problem with Manaxia lay. And this creature, it smiled, and she said, "You've found it, and I'm a dryad, and you have come to the right place. You finally found it." And Phoebe said, I'm here to help solve the problem of Manaxia. I've come to do this." And the dryad smiled, and she looked at Phoebe and she said, "My dear, in coming here you have already solved the problem. For I once made great friends with a woman many years ago who had the same pink hair as you do, who looks just like you, your mother, Theodora. And she promised me that one day in my hour of greatest need she would send me someone to help me out in this time. For you see, Manaxia is another name for loneliness, and you being here with me now has cured that. Your mere presence has stopped it." And so they lived together in the heart of the forest. And if you ever see a creature in need, or see beautiful green leaves and the mushrooms and pink moss that grow together in the forest, think of this pair in the heart of the forest.
Okay, so the story begins in the forest where lives a cove of furbolgs, and one in particular, Phoebe, the main character. She is short, she is 5'10", very short, and her and her family, they look after the forest, they tend to the trees, the plants, each other, and one by one the family starts to disperse, going on their own adventures, seeking riches and all sorts. So they all go one by one until it is just Phoebe, and she is quite happy in the forest looking after everything. And one day her mother comes back and says, "Look, I need you to venture to the heart of the forest, as there is danger. It is your destiny." And Phoebe goes, "Alright, I've always wanted to help out." So she goes on her way, walking for days, travelling through the forest, not knowing where to go, just letting the forest take her. She stumbles upon a great oak tree, which directs her on a path. Eventually meet a crow, which tells her that she's going the wrong way, and she ends up going the right way after ignoring the crow. So she ends up just walking mindlessly through the forest, starting to get a bit frustrated, almost lost. She doesn't know where she is, when she sees a glimmer in the distance. A person, one of the most beautiful beings the Phoebe has ever seen in her life, an olive-skinned dryad. And Phoebe goes, "Excuse me, can you please help? I'm looking for the heart of the forest." And the dryad replies with, "You have found it, I am it." The dryad then continues to explain that the darkness in the forest was actually loneliness, as the dryad had been alone for many years, and it had been many years since the dryad had met Phoebe's mother. So the way the dryad knew was the pink hair that Phoebe had. So Phoebe decided to live with the dryad and they stayed together, nurturing for the forest the way she'd once had, very happily, curing the Dryad's loneliness, taking down this great evil. So when you see pink moss next to a green tree, or a pink bird sitting on a great oak, you must think of these pair, and you must always help people you come across.
Okay, so in the forest, just near the outskirts of the forest, are a cove of furbolgs. They're awesome. They're all really friendly. Like lots of people together. They always do things together. And there's a particular furbog called oh crap. It'll come back to me. And all the other furbolgs, they decided that they wanted to go on an adventure. And as they went on that adventure, they all went away, and it just left this one furbog and her mother. And she was a beautiful furbog with pink hair. And her mother said to her, "You need to go on an adventure. You need to go on a big, long adventure." Fatibi. Her name's Fatibi. And she needed to go on an adventure. And Fatibi would go on an adventure to the centre of the forest, middle of the forest, and the heart of the forest. She had to go and find the heart of the forest. And her mother told her, "You need to do this. It's important. You really need to do this. It's important for everyone and everything. The world needs you to do this." So Fatibi went for this adventure, and she goes through the forest, and she traipses for days and days, adventuring through the forest. And as she goes through the forest, she comes across this great oak tree, this beautiful old oak tree. And she asks the oak tree for help to find the heart of the forest. And it points in the direction of a crow. So she follows along and gets to the crow, and she asks the crow, and the crow tells her the wrong direction. It doesn't give her the right direction where to go. It's bad crow. Very bad crow. So he's trying to fool her away from it. But Fatibi doesn't believe him. She doesn't believe that it's going in the right direction. So she doesn't follow the crow's directions. She goes on her own way, and she falls for days and days trying to find the heart of the forest. And then one day she sees in the distance, quite far in the distance, but this beautiful light. And she goes towards this beautiful light. And in this beautiful light, there's a beautiful deoper. And this beautiful deoper, as she goes to him and speaks to him and says, "Who are you?" And he says, I'm a deoper. Who are you looking for? What are you looking for? And she says, "I'm looking for the heart of the forest." And he says, "Well, I'm the heart of the forest. I'm the heart of the forest, and I know that your mum sent you, because I know who your mum is." And Fatibi goes, "How do you know who my mum is?" And the deoper says, "Because you've got pink hair, and I know that your mum has that, and it's came down from there, and that your mum sent you." And so Fatibi decides that she's going to spend the rest of her life with the deoper in the heart of the forest. And they go about everything together, and it's joyous and happy, and they absolutely love everything that they do together. And it's a sign now that any time when you're in the forest and you see either some pink moss next to some green plants or some pink moss on a great oak tree, that it's a memory of the the beautiful relationship that they had, and how hunting through the dark forest can bring out the beauty of what's inside.
Okay, a lot of information. So, at the edge of a forest lives. At the edge of a forest, there was a tribe, a family of furbolgs, who were quite a tight knit family. They lived in the forest. The forest gave them everything they needed. Um, and within this forest, there lived a young female furball called Fertibi. Now, Fertibi was a little unique from the rest of the furbolgs. She had pink skin, and not pink skin, sorry, she had pink hair, and she had a close knit of friends, which in the colony they all played and they lived together, and they all had games, and they all got along really, really well, and they just did everything together, and this was their life. And it was decided upon one day that all our friends decided that they're going to go on an adventure, and they're going to go into an adventure in the middle of the forest. And Fertibi decided that this wasn't for her. She the forest was large and just massive. It was a bit too dangerous for her to go in there, so she stayed behind with her mum, and left her kin to go do their own thing. While she was staying with her mum was another furball, but she was really beautiful and very well groomed. She also had pink hair like her daughter, and she was like, Fertibi, you need to go into the forest. You need to go on a grand adventure. You need to go to the centre of the forest and find the heart of the forest. It's part of our clan's tradition. It's extremely important, and you have to do this. So Fertibi, realising that all her friends had gone, and at the becking of her mum, decided that she'd pack her things and go. So Fertibi ventured into the forest. But the forest was far larger and far more deep than she expected. She spent days travelling through this forest, and she journeyed deeper and deeper and deeper into this forest until she came across this very unusual large oak tree. So upon approaching the tree, she reached into the tree, she reached out to the tree and asked for its guidance. Asked it for where she can get information from, to get into the forest. And the tree managed to point her towards the direction of a crow, which happened to be sitting on a branch. So Fertibi approached the crow and asked the crow, do you know where the heart of the forest is? And the crow, for all it was worth, was very much, well, yes, of course I do. I'm a crow, I can fly, I see above the forest. I know exactly where it is. And used its wing and beak to point a direction to Fertibi to say, you have to go this way. Fertibi was a bit perplexed because she'd been travelling in one direction and the crow seemed to be pointing in a slightly different other direction. And she didn't trust the crow. And Fertibi, thanked the crow for the directions, but decided she might try things on her own way and went her own direction, which happened to be the right choice because the crow had given her a lie and had led her astray. So Fertibi again journeyed into this forest, and it was getting dark. It was getting more dense and dense. She spent even more days traveling, with absolutely no direction, and was getting severely lost, until she eventually came across what seemed to be a small clearing. And within that clearing, there was a creature or something called a deoter. And this deoter had a very charismatic charm about it and held itself high. And Fertibi was a bit taken back from it and approached this creature who, nodded and accepted her presence. And Fertibi walked up to it and went, well, who are you? And deoter went, well, I am what I am. What are you doing here? So Fertibi was like, well, I'm looking for the heart of the forest. And deoter went, well, I am the heart of the forest, and I know your mother sent me. And she was like, well, how is it you know my mother sent me? How do you know who I am? And the deer said, well, it's because your mother found me before, and you have the same hair colour as your mother. So, quite clearly, I know your mother sent me to go find me. And after that, Fertibi decided, well, now that I'm here, I'm going to go stay with you. And as it went on, they spent their days and their weeks staying with each other, and had like wonderful adventures together, and they protected the forest, and I believe they sparked some form of relationship or something. And as they went through, they flourished and such. And as such, now when you go into the forest and get into the deep ends of it, if you find any pink moss or any large, thriving greenery of kind of leaves, that's a symbol of their relationship. And what it means is, even though no matter how deep or how dark something may turn out, if you just continue on that path, at the end, you might find something bright and beautiful within it. Best of luck for the next person, because that's a lot to remember.
Okay, I already forgot half of it. And yeah, but so there was a family on the edge of the forest that lived there, a family of furballs. And one of the furballs were called, I can't remember what she was called. She was called let's go with Tiffany, because I don't know how she was called. In the family of furballs, there was one of the daughters, Tiffany, and she had pink hair, and yeah. One day, some of the furballs decided they wanted to adventure into the centre of the forest. But Tiffany was like a bit hesitant, and she was like, nah, I ain't gonna do that. So she stayed home with her mother, who was a very lovely, elegant, well presented furball who also had pink hair like her daughter. And her mum was like, Tiffany, you have to go an adventure and to the centre of the forest. You can't stay here. You have to go to the centre of the forest and find the heart of the forest. And Tiffany was like, okay. And then off she went. Tiffany's going and she's adventuring to the centre of the forest. So she's just walking, she's going in one direction, she's a bit confused, she's not quite sure where to go, she's realising, I don't know where the heart of the forest is, how am I meant to find the heart of the forest? And she finds a crow, and she's like, okay. She asks the crow, hi, so do you know where the heart of the forest is? And the crow's like, yeah, I know where the heart of the forest is. I fly about the woods. I see them from above. I know where the heart of the forest is. And he got his wee wing and he pointed in a direction. But Tiffany was a bit hesitant because she's been walking this one way and the crow's pointing a completely different way. And she's like, no. I'll stick to my heart, and she ignored the crow's directions just as well because he gave her the wrong directions because he's an asshole crow. So Tiffany picks up her pace again and is travelling for a couple days through the forest. She eventually gets to this plain part of the forest, not much around, more flat. And she finds a creature called a deoter. Go with that. And she asks the deoter, do you know where the heart of the forest is? He's like, well, I am the heart of the forest, and I know your mother sent you here. She's like, how do you know my mum? She's like, how do you know she sent me here? Well, you like your mum have pink hair, and your mum came to find me once and came to find the heart of the forest. It's like, oh, okay. So Tiffany and this daughter have formed some sort of friendship, and they spend days in the woods, days and days, and they're just getting along, grand, best of pals. And it said that if you're walking through the forest, or a forest, and you see any pink or green mossy areas, or like pink forage, colourful pieces of forestry as you're walking through, that is a sign of their friendship. And it's a sign that at the end of a very dark path, that there's always something bright and happy at the end, and it doesn't always end bad, and there's always happiness at the end of a dark road. So I'm sorry, because that was awful. And yeah, bye.
On the edge of a dark forest lived a family of furry creatures. Let's just call them furries. The edge of a dark forest lived furry creatures called furries. The family, the eldest girl of which was called Tiffany, and you could tell her by her streak of pink hair, like her mother before her. So her family have decided they're going to find the heart of the forest, the fabled heart of the forest, the mythical heart of the forest. But she declines. She's happy with her life at home. She doesn't want things go out in some weird search for something that may or may not exist. Their family leave and travel into the deep, dark forest. All that's left behind is her and her mother. That evening, her mother turns to her and says, Tiffany, you must find the heart of the forest. It is your destiny. Tiffany doesn't believe in this destiny nonsense, but her mother's case is so convincing that eventually she decides, well, there's nothing else going on, I may as well go. And off she trots. The veil of darkness as she approaches the forest. Piercing. But yet she wanders in. Now she assumes it's going to be easy to get lost in this forest, so the way that she decides to travel is by walking straight ahead in one direction. Because she knows she's at the edge, so if she walks straight ahead, she will eventually come to the middle in her head. That's how she'll come to the heart of the forest. She wanders. A couple of days she wanders. How big is this forest? It's so huge. Till she finds a crow. Ah! Mr. Crow, she says, with her pink hair. Could you tell me where the heart of the forest is? Ah! The crow points its wing. It is over there. But this is not the direction Tiffany's been walking this entire time. This is not the thing that her and her mum had discussed. Her mum told her, stay true to her heart, stay true to her heart. But the crow, it didn't feel right. Something wasn't right about this crow. She didn't trust the crow. Why should I trust you, crow? Because I fly over the forest. I see all from above. I know the heart of the forest well. I have been there. I've eaten there. Something's not right about the crow. It's a creepy crow. She doesn't like it. It's just, something's not right. It's like it was waiting for her to put her off scent. So she refuses the advice of the crow and keeps on wandering the direction that she was originally intending to go. The direction her mother, the path her mother put her on, following her heart. And she was right not to go, because the crow was a liar. So she wandered She picked up the pace. She was determined. She was like, I'm going to get there. I know I can get there. I'm on the right track. I'm on the right journey. I can feel it in my heart. Her heart was getting glad and it was getting hopeful. A few days she wandered, but the further she walked, with the darkness piercing around her, even you couldn't tell if it was daylight anymore, if it was nighttime, but still her heart grew glad. Happiness inside her heart as she knew she was on the right path. Until she came to a clearing. And in the clearing, she saw a small round creature. She approached it tentatively. Excuse me, I am looking for the heart of the forest. Could you show me the way? The small round creature looked up with its old sad eyes. I am a Dodet, and I am the heart of the forest. Taken by surprise, she had found her way there. The clearing, it all made so much sense. And the Dodet appeared to be the heart of the forest. But she didn't quite get there yet. How do I know you are the heart of the forest? I know your mother. Wait, how did you know my mother? She once came here too. They spoke for a while, and it turns out her mum had been there and had met the Dodet years before, and she recognised Tiffany by the pink hair. After a conversation of some time, Tiffany realised she didn't want to leave the heart of the forest. This was where she was meant to be. And through time they became the best of friends. Their lives were symbiotic of each other. You know, they couldn't live without each other. And it's said there are still signs to this day signs of their friendship. Whenever you see any pink foliage in a forest, any pink moss, any pink colour anywhere, any pink in a forest, it's a sign of Tiffany and Doidette's friendship. And I think that's everything, but I'm not really 100% sure.
Okay, so on the edge of the dark forest there lived a family of furry creatures called furries. Tiffany was the eldest daughter, and she was recognised by her pink streak of hair, just like her mum. And the family decided that they needed to try and find the heart of the forest in this mythical and legendary forest. But Tiffany didn't want to. She didn't want to go out. She decided not to. And so did her mum. So the family ended up going. So there's just Tiffany and her mum. And her mum said to her, you know, you should actually go and try and find the heart of the forest. It's your destiny. So Tiffany, thinking about it, thought, well, it's my mum telling me. Must be true. So she decided to go. But before she left, her mum said, follow your heart, walk straight, and you cannot go wrong. So she gets to the edge of the forest and she remembered her mum's words. I must walk straight. I must follow my heart. So she starts walking. A couple of days go past and she's getting nowhere. But she comes across this crow. So she asks the crow, excuse me, crow, can you tell me where the heart of the forest is? And the crow just looks at her and squawks, and points a wing. It's over there. But it was in a different direction. And her mum said, stick to your heart, follow your heart. So she thought, how can I trust you? And the crow's, well, I've been flying around this forest forever and I've passed the heart of the forest. You must go this way. But Tiffany, with her long pink streak in her hair, decided, no, I'm going to follow my heart and keep going the same way. So she decides, no, And she just carries on. And she was right to, because the crow was a liar. So it's getting dark. Well, as far as she can tell, it was getting dark because the forest is so overturned. So she didn't even know if it was day or night, but it was dark. But another couple of days travelled and passed. Then all of a sudden, she comes across this beautiful open plain. And in the middle of it is a small creature. So she decides, I'm going to go talk to it. So she walks up to this small creature and says, "Excuse me, mister. Can you tell me where the heart of the forest is?" The little creature looks up with his big eyes. "Why, I am the heart of the forest." It's like, the last creature lied to me. How do I know this is true? So she asks, "How can I trust you?" And the small creature looks, it's like, "Because I know your mother." It's like, how do you know my mum? It's like, she too has a pink streak in her hair, and she has been here before. And Tiffany in her heart feels this must be true. So they start chatting, and realising that her mother had already been here, they grew a strong friendship. And she decided to stay. And she asks, "What is your name?" It's like Doedits or something, can't mind. But the friendship grew and she ended up staying with Doedits. And that's why if you see pink foliage in the woods, you can tell it's from Tiffany with her long pink streak and Doedits' friendship. So follow your heart, and if you see pink foliage in the woods, you're on the right path. Or something. Good luck.
On the edge of a gigantic forest, there lived a family of furry creatures known as furries. Family of five, mother and father, three sisters. Now the sister who stood out the most, her name was Tiffany. She had a pink streak in her hair and she looked just so similar to her mother, who also had a pink streak in her hair. One day the family decided they were going to go and find the heart of the forest. Now, Tiffany decided she didn't want to go. She was afraid of how long it would take them to get there, what they would come across. Her mother said, "I'll stay back with you," and the rest of the family went. Eventually, a day or so passed, and her mother said to her, "You need to go and look for the heart of the forest. It's your destiny. It's something you've got to do. Walk straight and follow your heart." So Tiffany packed her bags and headed off out. And she headed straight, like her mother had said. And she came across, after days of travelling, she came across a crow. And she thought, "I'll ask him if he knows where the heart of the forest is." The crow pointed his long blackened wing off to the left and said, "It's that way, just keep going that way, you'll be fine." Tiffany didn't trust the crow, just did not trust him. And he said, "I fly all over these places, it's that way, trust me." And Tiffany decided, no, I'm going to follow my heart, I'm going to keep going straight. So she carried on going straight. More days passed and she started to feel nervous and worried. It was getting dark, and with the forest being so overgrown, it was difficult to see. But eventually she came across this creature, very small creature, but it stood out because, like her, it had some pink fur. And so she stopped and she spoke to it and she said, "Excuse me, do you know where the heart of the forest is?" And the creature said, "Of course I do. I am the heart of the forest." So Tiffany fought for a while, and she was like, "I've been lied to before. How do I know?" And the creature said, "Well, your mother met me once before, and she had a pink streak in her hair." Now that was all Tiffany needed to hear. If this creature knew her mother, it must be true. So they played together and laughed together and sang together, and basically if you see pink foliage out in the woods, it's a reminder that once upon a time Tiffany and her friend, the small pink furred creature, had a really good time.